Here.
Councilman Horgan.
Here.
Councilwoman Schwabenbauer.
Here.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
Councilman Whalen.
Here.
Okay, Sunshine Statement, please.
Let the minutes reflect that in compliance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act, that notice of this meeting has been provided by notifying the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger for placing a notice on the bulletin board and filing same with the Borough Clerk on January 1, 2017.
Thank you. Is there a motion to suspend the regular order of business?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Okay, the first item is River Center presentation of proceeds from the International Food and Wine Fest. Mr. Scavone.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we had the International Festival at the end of April this year. It was a great day. Despite some kind of chilly, cold weather, we had a wonderful crowd turnout. And we're very pleased to be making donations to two charities that have done a lot for Red Bank and its residents, Parker Family Health Center and Holiday Express. So I know we have representatives here, so maybe I could ask them to join me up here. And Mayor, if you'd like to join us, and our council liaison.
Who's going to sing for Holiday Express?
No, it's going to take pictures today.
That's all I want to know.
You'll have to join us Friday after Thanksgiving on Broad Street.
No, you're going to do a little preview.
First of all, both organizations were incredibly generous in providing volunteers for the event. They were very supportive in spreading the word about the event and really helped us bring a great crowd into Red Bank that day. And for all the good work you do in Red Bank, we are really honored to be presenting you each with a check for $7,500.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure working with you. I'll take it.
Okay, you can have
Right?
it. No. Yeah, why don't you
on
do
this
this?
side? Yeah, we're doing this back.
Yeah. Mayor, you were the
Oh,
yeah, Mayor, please. Yes, Mayor.
But that means you're dressing next Christmas.
When one loses hair, one wears hats.
And we may have the hats, so it's all you.
But I'm glad David Prown is not here because every time David Prown shows up at a council meeting, no disrespect to David, but I always look at him and he knows why I'm looking at him, and then I go, and he goes, yeah, I know. So I have this antipathy with baseball caps or any caps in a building, but I'm wearing one, so you can all criticize me.
Good on you, Mayor.
And I'm not going to sing, no.
What?
Oh,
I'll get the mic down.
You can be the Grinch too. Wonderful, thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Before you go, I just want to say, please express to Tim, as well as the board and the staff, for their wonderful, wonderful partnership with the borough. It's 30 years. This will be the 30th year, and I have to tell you, for the past 30 years, he has never said no, or I'm too busy, or the staff is too tired, or we want something. He's always said, we are there at Thanksgiving, this is how we start the season, and it is just so wonderful. Holiday Express, as well as Tim and all of you, are extraordinary ambassadors for us throughout the whole state. I know that I've seen some of you at the St. John's Church concert out right before Christmas at St. John's, the oldest church in the state of New Jersey, in Newark, on Market Street. And every time that Tim, as well as the rest of the staff, before they introduced themselves, they said, you know, we are from Red Bank and we're here, and it just makes me feel so good because he always points me out in the audience too. So, but no, we're great friends. But what you do for us is extraordinary. And there's some members of the Board of Education are here, and I'll never forget. Maybe about 15 years ago, that I approached Tim, and I said, Tim, wouldn't it be wonderful when we had the warm-up groups, instead of having a professional warm-up groups, that we have the kids from the the middle school perform. And so since then, he's invited them, and they've been the warm-up act for Holiday Express. It's given those kids an extraordinary sense of participation, and they are so proud to be part of such a great show, to be part of a tradition. So thank the Board of Education for lending us the kids, but more importantly, thank you for spotlighting what is really a great asset for all of us. So thank you for the contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you. Okay. Thank you for being here.
Yes, absolutely. Gonna meet.
Feel better. Thank you.
Okay, resume regular order of business. Second? All in favor? Any opposed? For workshop, we have a couple of quick items. First item here is a proposal with respect to amend the planning and development regulations to create an ordinance which will be referred to both the historic preservation as well as the planning board that will create a methodology that in the event structures, residential structures predominantly are destroyed by fire, that if they are in a non-conforming area, they would be able to make an application for the restoration of that non-conforming structure without having to spend a lot of money to go before the zoning and planning board and provide for fees. This is having an effect in our residential neighborhoods that were previously residential are now industrial, and it's a burden. So the proposed amendment to the regulations would make it easier to restore within the footprint if it was a residential structure in a zone that has changed to industrial or commercial. So it's going to go to the Historic Preservation Commission for their review, recommendation, as well as to the planning board. So if the council is okay on that, we have the ordinance, which is ordinance 2017-19 for introduction. We have over a month for public comment. I think we should move forward. Are we okay with that? Good. 2017 road program. Laura, are you handling that, or
Yeah,
Ed?
Laura's going to handle the
Okay.
problems for us. She's going to talk about the road program, our complete streets, and everything that's in line. Thank you.
If I could, the 2016-2017 road program includes improvements to East Bergen Place from Branch Avenue to Maple. The borough was awarded a
Let's get,
What is that?
can you hear me now?
Okay.
We do.
Okay, the 2016-2017 road program for the borough of Red Bank includes improvements to East Bergen Avenue, specifically from Branch to Maple. There would be a sanitary sewer replacement in that area, as well as some modifications to the existing lift station in that area. I think it's important to note that in 2015, the borough was awarded municipal aid from the DOT, which also helps with this project as well. In addition, the borough is looking at mill and overlay of 3 roadways, specifically Manor Drive, the first 200 feet of that roadway. Prospect Avenue, there's an area where we have a hill because of salt to keep ice from that area. It's unraveling a little bit, so this would be a mill and overlay to address that area. And also Layton Avenue, this would be a half width along Layton from Dr. James Parker Boulevard to Locust Avenue. This would mirror, the gas company has been in and done some work out there, so this would take the other half of that roadway. The speed bumps would still be there. In fact, the area would be made uniform, because currently I don't think it's uniform. In addition, the program includes improvements to the Gold Street parking lot, which will include drainage enhancements in that area. I think, well, be very quick, that kind of covers the project in totality. Oh, so just by way of delays, as I had mentioned, East Bergen was awarded a 2015 grant. As the public may be aware, the DOT had a shutdown for approximately a 6-month period last summer. And as a result, they ceased projects, and the borough wasn't allowed to proceed with any projects at that point until the state adequately appropriated the funds. So as a result, that's why that road was not done last year and would be included in this year's road program.
That's it. Laura, before you go, it's not really a road program, but I know that maybe you have the answer to this. I probably should have asked you before, but do you know what's going on in Middletown with Hubbard Avenue when that's going to be finished? Because it's causing a Herculean problem for Red Bank.
Correct. I'm aware of the detour that's set up currently for that. As I sit here tonight, I'm not familiar with the issues or the project completion, but I'm more than happy to follow up.
But is it a sewer issue, or what's the problem?
I'm not familiar with the specific issues out there currently. I can certainly follow up.
The only thing I'd ask you to do is that if the situation continues, or it's going to continue for more than a couple of days after this weekend, I think the council should consider asking Middletown to take diversionary measures in terms of, because the commute into Red Bank is backlogged by about a half hour every morning because of the detour on Hubbard Avenue, and the same thing at night. And unfortunately, most of the people that are backlogged are coming into Red Bank to go back into Middletown. So it's not even people going into Rumson and Fairhaven. They would have to come out of them anyhow. But most of the people are coming in because they can't make a left on Hubbard. They're coming over the bridge, and they're making a left on Rector. So we may have to maybe get into an interlocal on terms of traffic amelioration and assistance for Middletown Police for that situation if it continues much more, because their own residents are being impacted by a half-hour delay, and they're blaming us, and frankly, it's a Middletown problem.
No problem here. I'm happy to follow up.
Okay. Thank you. Next item is the Shade Tree Committee Tree Bank Ordinance, and I know that Mr. Brooks is here. Would you like to bring the council up to the mark on this, because if we're ready to move on it, and just maybe give us a brief description, and we'll go forward with it.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Bill Brooks, Tower Hill Avenue, Red Bank. I'm the vice chair of the Shade Tree Committee. Sorry. The reason we asked for this was to help us preserve our urban forest and keep our tree count up. And what the change is designed basically to do is where a development due to physical constraints or overhead utility cannot put trees into that site. This allows them to make a payment of $500 per tree that would be required into the Shade Tree Trust Fund that will then be used to plant trees on public land throughout the borough, whether it be between the curb and the sidewalk, in the right-of-way, or in the public parks. Mayor, I don't know, is school property considered borough property, or?
It's public property.
It is public. So should we deem that that's where some should go? That would be.
Well, we should talk to the board, to the superintendent.
If the superintendent wished it, that would be. So that was a question that was raised by the other members of the committee. Okay. I said I didn't know. Okay.
Our attorney will look into it.
Okay, thank you. Everyone was in favor of this. I know from my position in 2 other towns locally that we have a similar ability, and it seems to work very well. It is not designed to allow the developers to avoid putting trees there. What it is designed to do is to give the borough the opportunity to get trees where it's just not possible due to physical limitations to install trees and have any possibility of survival. So in the opinion of everyone on the committee, it is a good idea, and we urge the mayor and the governing body to adopt it if they see fit. Can I answer any questions from anyone on?
I think that we've all taken a look at it. I know that the Environmental Commission has also reviewed it. It's on the agenda for tonight, and unless anybody has any objection, it has to go to the planning board anyhow. So let's move
Mayor, I'd
forward.
just like to make one clarification, just so everyone knows what we're talking about. This only relates to trees that would have had to be replanted on borough property or the rights of way. So there's other towns, particularly Rumson around here, that's very stringent tree ordinance. If you do something on your own private property, it's not subject to any borough jurisdiction. Otherwise, you have to replace or make payments, or and there's all sorts of requirements. That's not what this is. This is, you have a development, you make a curb cut, you put a driveway where there were street trees, that you have to make a contribution to the borough in compensation for those trees, because those trees can't go back there in accordance with, you know, your requirements.
So nothing to do with private property law?
It's nothing to do with private property. It's only applicable to whatever would have been in the borough right of way or a street tree. I just want to make that distinction because that's an important one, because that's the difference between you know, the Shade Tree Commission powers and the town that has one, and a committee that's here. This only relates to what the borough would otherwise have control over anyway. It just requires, it codifies compensation so that the Shade Tree Committee can go out and replace those trees elsewhere, things like that. We're not talking about thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking about, you know, $1,500 depending on your frontage, or $500 if you have one tree that was in a driveway, things like that. It gives them a small funding source to go replace that elsewhere. So I just want to be clear how far-ranging this is. It's not a Shade Tree Commission like you see in other towns where you need people's permission to cut down stuff on your property or anything like that. This is simply a development regulation that if there's curb cuts or street trees that are not replaced, there has to be a contribution to the Shade Tree Committee.
And how is it decided where they will be planted, the new trees?
I'm sorry, Kathy.
I'm sorry, is this working?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I guess it's my voice. Okay, I'll speak a little louder. How will it be decided where the trees will be planted, these new trees? Because they can't be replanted in the, that's something that the Shade Tree Committee will...
The Shade Tree Committee will be actively involved in that. We have a
The borough
list.
has an arborist as well, who gives his opinion. I'm sorry, I'm continuing to interrupt you. Just so you understand, the rubric is the arborist gives his permission, and there's all kinds of standards that Mr. Brooks and the Shade Tree Committee has.
Kathy, I think that's me by default. That's okay. Yeah, we maintain a list from residents who would like trees, and depending on our budget and availability. So, closer to the top of the list. If the list is full, we'll look at the parks, and we will try and plant the appropriate tree for size and scale and the appropriate openings wherever we possibly can. And our ordinance makes we have nothing to do with residential trees, and it was set up that way when Ed McKenna was the mayor specifically. The Shade Tree Committee looks at the trees in the borough right-of-way, public land, and then development. That's it.
So, Bill,
And major development only, not minor development, just major projects.
Actually, Mayor, they've been sending a lot of it to us, but
You haven't been doing it.
well, most of the time it makes no sense, so we're not over-inventing the wheel. If somebody is taking out a major tree that might impact the character of the neighborhood, we really don't have that. But if I think once they require variances, it rears its ugly head. So maybe then we would ask the developers to, you know, replace the tree so the neighborhood stays in character.
Yeah.
Ed?
So Bill, if somebody takes down a borough tree in the right-of-way and they're willing to replace it, it doesn't apply, correct?
That is correct. We're not giving them an out to not be able to do it. We would request that they put it back. If there's any way they can go back without adversely affecting sight lines, overhead, whatever it is, they're going back there. It's when that cannot be accomplished. We have no way to gain anything. This will take care of that.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just one last question.
Yes, sir.
What made you pick the number $5 a tree? Is it an arbitrary number? Is it other ordinances in other towns? How do you come up with the fee of $500?
From ordinances in multiple other towns. And basically, when you're looking at tree costs, if you double what you're paying for it, that pretty much covers any installation or anything else to get that tree in the ground, stable, watered, and all that stuff. And that is a number that is consistent with many other tree protection ordinances throughout the state and in other states. And whoever came up with that initially, he's over my pay grade. But that's one that has been working. If you were to buy a $250 tree for your home through a landscaper, you're probably, if that tree cost him $250, if it was going to be guaranteed for 1 year, provided you watered it, your installed in the ground cost would probably be $750 250. But that's with a guarantee. So we're not guaranteeing our own trees. We can't do that. So the 500 was a reasonable number that takes care of the installation by the borough and so forth.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, next is the sign ordinance. Mark, I know that you inherited this and you're working on it, and I just think that we need some sort of moving ahead. So if your committee can make a proposal, no matter what it is, let's just get it on. But while you're doing it, I know I had an opportunity to have Councilman Zipprich was driving me around yesterday afternoon at my request, not because I was tipsy, but because I'm a little bit tired. One of the things that I'm already sure it's in the ordinance, but we have an extraordinary downtown. We're all proud of it, and I know a lot of property owners and businesses take really great care of their properties. Lately, it's like some person does something and it is duplicated and triplicated and quadrupled by everybody else. It's bad behavior. It's also illegal. What I've seen a lot, and all you have to do is drive around the downtown. We only took 15 minutes and found 4 different locations where people seem to feel that if they have their property for rent, which is commercial property, or for sale, they can do whatever the hell they want, and to the detriment of their neighbors. For example, on 3 of the buildings, they have windows and they have doors. Yet on 3 of those buildings, they have butchered the facades of the buildings, which they spent a lot of money to fix years ago, with nailing for sale or for lease signs, not on one part of the facade of the building, but on, in many cases, 2 parts. In one case, 4 signs we counted for the same building. Now, if you're looking at a building and you see a sign staring at you, you really need to be the same sign, the same number, the same stupid name 4 times. So I think we ought to enforce what we have. But real estate signs, my recollection is that there's only 1 permitted of a certain size. And it says it's got to be in the window, it's got to be on the facade. Here we have beautiful buildings that somebody spent a lot of money on, and they're nailing these for sale signs on 3 or 4 sides of the building. So the regulation have to be specific. Real estate for sale signs are done, 1, and it has to be in a window. The other thing is, once a property is leased and they sign the contract, there's no reason for that advertising to be up there for the next 3 years. If they have a lease or if they have a sale, once the closing takes place or once the lease is undertaken, whether or not they've started construction inside or not, we want that sign down. It is just becoming, it's like the insane are leaving the asylum at this point. We have to retake control. And it's going to be hurtful for some people, but in the end, I think it's going to be a blessing for them. So the sign ordinance, I think, as you're working on it, I think that's already in there. It just has to be enforced. But we got to make sure that unless you don't have a window, there's no reason for you to butcher your facade with some realtor, broker. It just doesn't make the town look good.
Yeah,
people would look at us as a model for these things, and now they're saying, what are you doing?
It's 2 parts to every ordinance. One is having the rule on the books. The second part is always enforcement. And we come up against enforcement a lot of times, and I know, Mayor, you're aware we had 2 retirements at the end of May. In code, we're hiring new bodies to fill those roles, but so we haven't probably been out with code. We've down to 2 guys really. But we're hiring some part-timers to come in and fill
The
those
sad
roles.
part is
We'll get back around.
the sad part is the violators who are doing this already are aware they're not supposed to do it.
Correct. Yeah, I'm well aware.
The other thing is, although it's not signed, but I know I had spoken with the councilman, and as we're looking at our ordinances, I think it's about time we start adopting what I call the Asbury model in terms of code enforcement. and that is that the code enforcement department, whether we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inspectors, part-time, full-time, I don't care. But we should break down the municipality in zones, and we should designate a code enforcement to a zone for every 4 months, and rotate that person in different zones so not everybody's doing the same zone. That person would then be charged exclusively with taking care of code issues in that zone. It's the only way we can take back some of our neighborhoods. And by the way, the violations are not in our residential neighborhoods generally. They're in our commercial and professional district. It is absolutely impossible to deal with the photographs I get every day from concerned citizens and residents and other property owners saying, what's going on? So I think the best way to do it is reorganize that department and break that department down, break the town down in zones, and rotate each individual enforcer, not to a particular duty like checking, fire alarm applications and all that. Every code enforcement officer should be cross-trained to do the other person's job in all the other zones. So if one zone is harder to work than the other, nobody's stuck with it the whole year, but they rotate so they all have the same responsibility. I think we have to move forward. Otherwise, we're losing the battle here.
I agree with you. We just, again, we had some personnel losses, and we're trying to get people back up to speed. I agree with the idea of cross-training. I don't know. We have to look at that and see if that's genuinely feasible, and we may facilitate more hiring. I don't know. We have to balance a lot of factors when we're evaluating that, but it's certainly a good suggestion. We'll discuss it at length at our next meeting.
Well, the beauty of that department, frankly, is that whatever we spend in that department for enforcement is not a drain to the taxpayer, but it balances itself in terms of not only the fees but the costs of the administration. Because again, those particular violations that we saw, not just in the signs, which were the obvious thing, but in other long-standing code problems, could be remedied by enforcement and by fines by people who just don't do it.
Yeah, agreed. And I would say, if I could just add, Mark had a code committee meeting, was it just last week?
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday, yes. And John Drucker and Tommy Walsh both presented potential organizational changes and a redesign that would allow for better enforcement. And it would also allow for, I want to call it more plug and play with folks, but essentially building a bench of people who could come in and help out and would only be paid as they were working. It wouldn't be so it wouldn't cost us more. It would give us more flexibility, and it would allow for that better enforcement that you're talking about. So I think there's a good path forward. We just have to keep moving toward that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So if we can move on that, okay? Everybody on board with that? Okay. Anything else for workshop? If not, approval of the minutes June 14th. Second. All in favor? Mayoral appointments, only one, David Cassidy to the planning board is my alternate for the rest of the year. David is a volunteer firefighter of many years with Navigate with the Ladder Company. Comes from a great activist family, a resident with his family in Red Bank, and is a very well recognized producer of arts matters, art, especially the moving pictures in New York. Great resident and good family. So, I'm sorry. Does that betray my age? Moving pictures. See, Bruce understood that. Versus still pictures? That you would have really got worried if I said still pictures. Reports of Mayor Council Committee members. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate 4 of our travel soccer teams for taking first place in the MOSA Spring Leagues. Summer camp signups are underway, with camp starting on July 10th. The summer series will be kicking off Thursday, July 6th, with our first jazz performance. Mike Kaplan, known that. The performance starts at 7 p.m. in Riverside Gardens Park. Concerts will continue every Thursday night at 7 throughout the summer. The first movie in the park will be Grease on Tuesday, July 11th at dusk.
Is that a moving picture?
That is a moving picture. To kick off the summer series, we'll have a few hot rod style antique cars out in front of the park. The full schedule of the summer series is on the website, and we are appreciative to everyone who sponsored the summer series as we look forward to all the summer events. And also remember that free fitness in the park occurs every Wednesday at 6 p.m. as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Mayor. This past Saturday, the Mayor, Council President Horgan, and I attended the 100th anniversary of the Bates Lodge. We offer our congratulations to the Elks on this milestone. And yesterday, Councilman Youngstrom, the Mayor, and I welcomed Red Bank's newest business to the borough. The Shrewsbury Avenue Pharmacy is open for business opposite the Parker Clinic, so everybody stop in and welcome them. Last week, the DPU committee met and reviewed operations, supervisory reports, engineering updates, and ongoing road and water utility improvements. We also reviewed the capital budget items that were being submitted to the Finance Department. Last week, there was a sewer break on Shrewsbury Avenue. The DPU team responded extremely well. They worked very closely with the contractor, Mark Voschek, and had a major issue resolved within 24 hours. It's times like these when our team works effectively and efficiently together for the benefit of all of the residents and businesses here in the borough. So to all of our public utilities employees and our police department, thank you on behalf of the entire governing body for your rapid response. And I also wanted to congratulate all of the graduates from the class of 2017. It was an honor to represent the borough at the Red Bank Regional High School graduation as well as the Red Bank Middle School graduation last week with the mayor. Summer has begun. Please make sure pools are secure and our littlest residents are supervised at all times to keep them safe. And I wanted to especially thank Director Keene, who has been working tirelessly with JCP&L the last week and a half or so on all of the electrical issues in Marine Park. I saw the transformers being installed yesterday, and I know Cliff is working very closely with the JCP&L officials to repower the park as we continue to recover from Superstorm Sandy. Please have a safe summer and a great 4th of July. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick report about the library. Summer reading programs have begun for children, teens, and adults, so please stop by at the library for instructions. There's a lot going on, so please use your library, take advantage of it. It's a great place to be.
That was your shortest report all year. Thank you. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. A couple quick things from the police department end. I want to welcome Echo. It's our newest K9 unit. I don't know if anybody saw Patrolman Tanner Shea is the patrolman who's been assigned to the K9. I made a post about it a couple days ago because people had concerns about the cost and what goes into a K9 unit. We have a police trust fund that from when we impound vehicles and no one comes to collect them, we end up selling them off and it goes into a trust. So the dog Echo is actually free. We just repurposed one of our police vehicles and just put a cage that costs $1,100, and all the leashes and all the ancillary costs are all part of that trust fund that was set up for the K9 unit. So to get an unbelievable resource for the town, like I mentioned last council meeting, Hunter, the first K9 unit, actually had that huge drug bust, which no one knows how many lives it would have saved, but really low cost to the borough, a great resourceful tool. Secondly, I'm working with Stu Jensen, who will be the fire chief upcoming year, to work on a CPR training for the public. We're going to probably hold it at the Red Bank Senior Center, invite the community, have some volunteers. There'll be more to follow, but just as an initial update, CPR training, which would be great for the community to get involved, come out. You never know who might need their services. And then lastly, parking. Obviously, at the last council meeting, we had the parking presentations, and the email was set up, the form was set up. So give your responses you have to the end of the month to give your comments and concerns. The mayor and I are also working to come up with a special council meeting, kind of like we had, where the council meeting will end, and then we're going to have a meeting for just public comment. So that'll happen within the next couple of weeks, and just be on the lookout for that. But there will be a meeting just for public comment. Thanks.
Mark? Thank you, Mayor. The Environmental Commission met last night, and we are full steam ahead in our sustainable Jersey along with our green team. We are very confident we will not only achieve bronze status but silver status this year, which would be a tremendous achievement for the borough. You you look around, you find out you actually get credit for things we've already been doing. I want to applaud Cliff and the staff at DPU for getting the documentation that we need to actually prove that we're doing what we say we're doing. So thank you, Cliff, and your staff for helping out with a tremendous resource. Also in code, the abandoned property ordinance that was recently passed. We've started mailing out notices to residential homeowners who have vacant or abandoned properties. 18 notices went out. There are 4 more properties that are on our regular roster that we were trying to locate contact information for. So 18 went out on residential, and there are 26 commercial properties that will be mailed out. Notices will be mailed out on Friday the 30th, with 1 that we're still trying to locate information for. So that's a significant number of properties in the borough that will be registered, and hopefully we will spur these homeowners or property owners to improve the properties or move the properties, sell them to help improve not only the values of the neighborhood from a financial standpoint, but also quality of life. You're not looking at an empty lot or a vacant building that's boarded up. So I think it's a tremendous thing the borough is doing to move that forward. I want to thank Tommy for his diligence on that. So Tommy Welsh, thank you. I also want to recognize Tommy, John Drucker, and Frankie Woods. We've been dealing with an abandoned property on Linden Place. Homeowner has been, the neighbor I should say, has been extremely responsive and helpful and thankful for our responsiveness at the borough side. So continue the good work, guys. Thank you.
Number 1, thank you for that. Number 2, again, part of our drive yesterday, and I invite the 2 of us to go for a drive also, so at least you know that I'm not just a ranting lunatic sometimes. But my focus is not just on abandoned residential properties, but more importantly, as we've talked about, commercial properties whose state are obvious, are not improved, are not in a situation where they have to be demolished. They are commercial properties. They are right in our heart. And although they don't meet the classification for demolition because they're not on safe structure, a visual drive-by inspection clearly indicates those blatant anchor properties are serious code violations in terms of roofing, windows, rafters, painting, overgrown grass, leaders and gutters that are strapped on by tape. Those are not abandoned properties in the classic sense because they're commercial properties owned by very good property owners. But code enforcement and rehabilitation or demolition would be in order, frankly. So, like I said, I think that's great that we got notices to the abandoned properties, but some of these properties are not technically abandoned because there's nobody in there, but they're owned and maintained. We see them every day. They don't meet the definition of knockdown structure because they're not unsafe, but they fail the basic property maintenance code, and that's what we have to do.
And that's why the definition includes vacant, because it's much broader.
So we have to really go at all ends, and frankly, if we have to hire more people to do it, I say let's do it.
And Mayor,
What do you think?
Mayor, if I can comment, I couldn't agree more with you, especially you see that the tree ordinance was $500 per tree, yet, which I think it's a great idea, and our abandoned property ordinance was like less than $100 for a property that looks horrible and ruining the surrounding properties and quality of life. So I'm on board with any deterrent that we can make to people to clean up the properties and make it just a better quality of life in the surrounding property tax owners that have to live next to these homes that are just...
Again, I'm not going to go out there and write summonses or do anything else, but I mean, we have a basic property maintenance code, and there are different provisions of that code, and each of those provisions can be enforced. And again, it's not the fact that we don't want to do it, we can't do it. We've had shortages of manpower or human power, which we really have to get on it now. And if we have to get more people to do it, it's a good investment, because if not, it becomes a cancer in our community.
I think our code enforcement department, our fire enforcement, haven't always felt empowered by the people sitting on the dais, so I think that tone has changed and they are feeling empowered, so we're certainly full steam ahead trying to rectify some of these long-standing issues.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank
you. And Mark just touched on the comment I was about to make, which was that I would say over the last few years, I don't think that the code committee got a lot of attention or support from the council. And I think your comments are well noted, Mr. Mayor. I think we see the results of that. And I think that Mark is driving very hard in the right direction. So I think we're very supportive too. From a finance perspective, really no report. I'll just say that the next meeting is July 10th. Whatever comes out of that, I'll report at the following meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Last thing is Councilman Whalen did touch on this report, but the parking committee has had a preliminary meeting, as I indicated a couple of weeks ago. That is the first step. Spoken to our redevelopment attorney, and based on the advice of our attorney, as well as what I previously said, public will be given an opportunity if they want to have any comments on anything. Tonight is probably the night, not the night for it, because we will have a special meeting. It will probably be announced in the next day or so, because we want as big a forum as possible, and I'll have further discussions with the redevelopment attorney in terms of the legal position of the council in conjunction with our borough attorney. Other than that, any other communications under reports? No? No. Go ahead.
So I just hope someone, I don't know if it's going to wait till new business, but just because you said we're going to have a larger forum for the public comment, I wanted to just see if we had any more clarity on what the Oprah laws are or anything. And Greg, if you could correct me, I'm trying to do some homework and some digging for myself, because I know we'll all be on a council email. There'll be 4 of us on an email, and the email will say, like, do not reply all, because it's just for informational purposes. So if the 4 of us can be on an email, which would technically be a quorum, and it's just for informational purposes, why couldn't 4 of us sit in a meeting that we're just listening to presentations and we're just listening to information where no one's discussing? Because I don't like to read off things, but I'm just curious, because it made me wonder, because when I was doing research, it said obviously a quorum is when there's more than 4 people or 3 people present, and all members of the quorum intend to discuss or act upon public business. If a governing body member wishes to be present and sit in the audience just to receive information, that does not create an effective quorum or Oprah purposes. So do you think maybe at the next public hearing we could all be here just to listen and receive without discussing? Is there a way, given what I'm talking about, with the email instances?
The law is the Open Public Meetings Act. It requires that when there's a meeting of the governing body, effective majority, conducting public business, that there be a section reserved for public comment. So the issue last time was that there was going to be no public comment at the presentations. So if there was no public comment, look, at the same time, a long time ago someone told me you can do anything until someone sues you. So I give you the safest possible advice, which is 3 people need to be in the room. The governing body think that it's appropriate that everyone really needs to be there and listen, and judging from the atmosphere around this issue, that's probably true, from what I've seen being here. Just know that that's not as safe as if only 3 people were here. So my safest advice is only 3 people, but there's nothing precluding you. You guys can do whatever, you guys run the town. You guys can do whatever you want. If everyone says we're going to be here and we're going to do it in such a way that we can minimize that risk, and we discuss it with Leslie London, the redevelopment attorney who's handling the litigation that's the subject of it, which is really the genesis of all your lawyers telling you to be as safe as possible, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. Leslie said it's not going to materially affect that. But last time when we were here, you asked me the question, and I'm always going to give you the safest advice possible, because that's what lawyers do. But if you guys are the client at the end of the day, collectively the 7 of you, or really whatever 4 or more say. So if you guys want to, go a next step and try to arrange it so that everyone can be here, I'm more than happy to work with Leslie and make sure that the risk is as low as possible, because that's what makes me comfortable. Because at the end of the day, if something bad happens, it's on me, it's on Leslie, the people that are supposed to advise you. So, my advice is always safest, but if you want to take some measures where someone sits over there and someone sits over there, so that if we ever had to go to court and argue, that we set it up this way, we were sure to be safe, and this wasn't some kind of game, the judge is going to be looking at this without the pleasure of sitting here, understanding the atmosphere and all that sort of stuff, then I'm perfectly okay with that. And I would, but ultimately you guys are the clients, you decide. We just give advice.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. So, like, an example, so then why is if you could just be clear of everything except that, how is it allowed on an email? Why are we 4 of us allowed on an email?
only for informational purposes. So that's a different avenue.
But, because you wouldn't think though, public, because I know what you said was public discussion, but obviously the presentations of the developers wasn't really a public discussion, it was more of an informational basis, just like the emails are. So I'm hoping that maybe we'd be able to arrange at the next public forum that all of us would be able to be there, different sides of the room, no one speak to each other, there will be no public discussion, it'll only be a informational session, and hopefully we can
Right,
speak
yeah,
to
I mean,
presentation guys on that.
The same rule. So the number isn't what's important. The trigger is that if you intend, obviously the number, I shouldn't say the number's not important. The number is important because the majority in quorum is obviously needed to conduct public business. That's a prerequisite. But there has to be an intention to conduct public business, and it has to be open to all members of the governing body, which would be. But we have to make sure that there's no implicit or explicit intention that an effective majority sit in the room and seek to discuss it. And the other thing is, if you have public comment at such a session, which is essentially what I think we're talking about, then what happened last time goes out the window because there's public comment. All 7 you can sit in the room and advertise it. It doesn't violate the Open Public Meetings Act. The problem last time was the issue with not having public comment, which the Open Public Meetings Act specifically requires if an effective majority is conducting business. But if you're talking about having public comment at this next meeting, then everything I talked about last time is out the window. If you're going to advertise it, that's all the act requires.
Okay.
So that's the issue. And with respect to the email, just to answer all the questions, the email is why it says do not reply to all, because the clerk has to be able to send information out to all members of the governing body. Otherwise, it's totally not fair. Some people know something, some people know the other, and you all walk in the room and no one knows what they're talking about. So the one-way communication, disseminating information, it's okay. It's when someone replies back and discusses public business, when you're not sitting in front of the public, that it becomes a problem. That's why they always say, if I send it to more than one of you, do not reply to all. The clerk does the same. Because it's not the email itself, that the fact that those people are present, it's the fact that you're having a discussion that's outside of the public view.
Okay, and you would consider that meeting public discussion?
Yeah,
just that
public
presentation.
discussion on public business, and then with no public comment means that
Okay.
the safest thing to do is to only have a minority of the council here.
Thank
If you're going to have public comment, then the door's wide open to everyone, obviously to everyone to be here, and frankly, literally everyone. Hopefully not too many that don't fit in the room. Yes, and then all those other rules that we talked about last time go out the window because you've advertised it, you're allowing public comment, which is required, and then it's just like we're sitting here right now today. The problem last time was that no public comment put a wrinkle in it where made me and the redevelopment attorney really queasy about, especially with the pending litigation, about having what looked like, hey, we're going to sit over here, over there. So our safest advice was don't do that. But of course, that's a way to try to get around it. But I have to advise you the risk is the client doing that.
And the parking committee meeting is still the same as the governing body meeting?
No.
But that was because that was a parking committee meeting.
It was made a committee meeting so that there would not be an effective majority of the council here. That's why it was characterized as a committee meeting rather than a meeting of the governing body. That's correct. Because the public comment is the trigger. Because the act, there's no getting around it. It says there's a meeting of the governing body, you have to have public comment aside of portions. You can, as you've seen here, you can control the time, the manner, the methodology in which you do that. But there's no getting around that part of the statute. And I didn't want to go argue in front of a judge that putting people in different corners of the room didn't violate the spirit of the act. So that's why I gave that advice last time.
Why don't we just advertise it, comply with the sunshine laws, and then we could have
And public comment, it'd just be a special council meeting, and you're good to
comply
go.
with the notices, and then we all could be here.
We did in the parking committee, we let people know 2 weeks in advance that a parking committee meeting was going to happen after the council meeting.
Yeah, that issue was very confusing too. So we had the parking committee meeting. Leslie and I said, we're like, okay, that sounds like a good thing. We don't want to overburden the developers. It's going to take forever. And then when we left, I sent my opinion back via email, I think to everyone, and Leslie concurred with it that, look, I went to the Open Public Meetings Act, and it says specifically require comments. So we don't think this is the best route. So I think there was a lot of confusion about all of that because when we left the parking committee, that wasn't the case, and then we had to send, to make sure that we were, as lawyers, CYA. So I think there was a lot of confusion on that issue.
Thank you.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Under communications and petitions, request from the residents of Moreau Place to hold their block party on July 3rd. Motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Request from the Indie Film Festival to hold a barbecue at Bowtie Cinema on July 27th. Motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request from Battle on the Blacktop to hold their 5th annual 3-on-3 tournament at Count Basie Park on August 12th. Motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request from the Baraka Johnson family to hold a block party on September 3rd at the Close Layton Avenue between Locust and Herbert Book. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Request from Two River Theater to hold a Halloween ball on October 21st. Motion? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? And request from Monmouth County Boy Scouts to hold a 10 Commandments hike on Friday, November 24th. Motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any members of the public have any comments on any resolutions or ordinances that are on, some of which have already been discussed in workshop earlier? Mr. Lebetti.
Good evening.
Test? Okay. Question, there are 3 ordinances revolving around bonding that are on the agenda for tonight.
Revolving around what?
Issuing of bonds.
Oh, okay.
They total an amount of about $2 million. When I looked at the debt statement issued at the end of 12/31, I didn't see these on there, and these weren't listed as anticipated bonds. These are not budgeted for either. This is new debt that we're taking on, is that correct? They are, okay, they're in the budget. That was one
Yeah,
question.
Eugenia, go ahead.
Hi. The 1231 debt statement.
You have to use the microphone.
The 1231 debt statement basically will reflect all the debt as of 1231. It will not reflect any future. In the capital budget, in the budget we adopted for 2017, there's a capital portion, pages 40 in that area, and they list all the, basically, the capital projects that we're looking, and then we have to adopt an ordinance. A supplemental debt statement is filed with the state, with the department, DCA. After the introduction of after tonight, I have 3 days to file that. It will be a supplemental debt statement that it will include the introduced ordinance.
Okay, because there's an anticipated debt section in the debt statement, and it was filed in January, I believe, and I just didn't see this $2 million of bonding in there. Maybe something has nothing to do with it.
The annual debt statement only reflects as of 12/31.
Okay.
That's the requirement. It's basically a picture of the debt
As
as of 12/31.
of 12/31, we did not know we were going to take these $2 million.
Even if you know, you cannot include anything in the future. It is exactly what your debt is as of
The anticipated debt part throws me. I got it.
Yes.
I think so.
We cannot anticipate.
One of these ordinances, 2017-23, is $300,000 that we're borrowing for various improvements to parking lots located at Monmouth Street, English Plaza, and White Street. Why are we borrowing money to fix this right now if we're discussing all this stuff about parking?
The 2017 road programs is basically the improvements to some of the roads that the engineer said.
The road program ordinance, I see.
23.
That is part of the road program.
Oh, okay.
And that is for if we have to separate it because of the different funding.
So the parking utility is taking on $300,000 in additional debt.
And that is for the Gold Street parking lot, that's part of the road program that will
Okay.
be.
That struck me as odd, and it was $2 million in debt, so I figured I'd just ask some questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for answering.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Okay, motion to close.
We should have come, actually, a great point about White Street. I mean, I guess at DPW, or Cliff or Ed, can we line item out the White Street for now until we figure out what we want to do with, what we figure we're going to do with White Street, and what's the point of doing, to Tom's point, 6-figure works worth of improvements to White Street if we're going to vote on. I'm just kidding, is there anything way around it?
Legally, this is just an authorization, so whether you actually spend the money and put it out for bid, this ordinance, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman Trautmeier, it's just an authorization, doesn't spend to Eugenia. I believe it's spent until after.
Well, if I could, this doesn't include White Street. This is the Gold
Yeah.
Street parking lot, not the White.
Gold.
Okay, so it's not. I was just reading what was in the ordinance.
It says it's an omnibus language in it, and this is the problem sometimes I have with omnibus languages, because it includes everything but the kitchen sink. So it does say English Plaza, White Street, and Monmouth Street. It really should be more specific if the intent is for Gold Street, right?
Yeah, you do just, that's my point.
One at a time, guys. The tape can only pick up one person at a time. So is the intent Gold Street?
That's what I thought, it was just Gold Street. But
Okay,
that's what
so,
Laura just said yes.
all right, so on page 1 of ordinance 2017-23, section 3, why do we even have the reference to White Street? Why can't we take that out?
I think bond council may have said White Street rather than Gold Street.
Well, again, you know, he gets, or he or she gets the information from whatever our office, the finance office, gives them. So, Eugenia, are you saying that that shouldn't be in there?
Basically, that should read basically mostly all the parking lot, including by that.
Yeah, it says Monmouth Street, English Plaza, White Street.
Well, you know, the question that begs is, if it's in fact Gold Street, why don't we say it's a Gold Street lot and other lots? But at least let's focus on what it's supposed to be rather than what we think it is.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I think that is entitled protocol council, which are from the
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Come on up, we can't hear you from the back.
Yes, sir. I think,
Cliff Keen, Public Works Director. I think Gold Street, White Street, English Plaza, and Monmouth Street were part of the last road program in 2015. So that's just a typo that was carried over from the previous bond. The intention is White Street.
Gold Street.
Thank you, everyone. The intention is Gold Street. Say that on the record.
That goes back to what I suggested. Will the council entertain, at the time of introduction, even though this is just comment, section 3. Let's pay attention, guys. Section 3. Various improvements to parking lots located at Gold Street. Just to be on the safe side, and such other lots as may be authorized by council in case there's a problem, okay? Yeah, well, I don't know where it's in several pages. Yeah, it's only, Kathy, it's only on the first page, yeah. But in any event, why don't we just, that's the preamble, so I think that's the important thing. And such other lots, parking lots as are. Okay. Anything else? All right, so on ordinances, ordinance for introduction only, first reading, ordinance 2017-19, and ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 490 of the Planning and Development Regulations regarding non-conforming structures restoration, as was discussed in workshop. Motion to introduce. So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing will be on July 26, 2017, 6:30 p.m.
And we'll hear back from the Historic Preservation Committee and the Planning Board, right?
It's going to be sent to them, yeah. Ordinance 2017-20, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 665 regarding trees to be included as additional regulations regarding borough property and/or rights of ways, as was discussed at workshop. Motion to introduce.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing will be July 12, 2017, 6:30 p.m. Then why don't we make it the same time? Public hearing will be July 26th at 7:30 p.m. Ordinance 2017-21, an ordinance, bond ordinance providing for various improvements to the water, sewer, utility of the Borough of Red Bank for $600,000, and this is on ordinance 721.
for $600,000. This is for water and sewer utility. Motion to introduce.
Before we motion.
Yes,
Is this
well,
just
let's
based on the
first
last?
and then discuss. Second? Okay, discussion.
Just based on the last confusion, is this related to the roads program as well?
This is the road program.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm
This one also, I was under,
No, this
I
is
just want to make sure we got it.
water, 21 is okay, 22 and
21
23
is
have
okay.
typos. Okay.
Right, and 21 is fine. So the motion is second, all in favor? Any opposed? Public hearing on July 26th, 6:30 p.m. Ordinance 2017-22, which is a bond ordinance providing for bonds in the amount of $1,250,000, including $240,000 of New Jersey DOT municipal aid program, and authorizing the issuance of bonds with respect to same. Motion to introduce. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ordinance 2017-20, public hearing will be July 26th at 6:30 p.m. Ordinance 2017-23, a bond ordinance providing for various improvements to the parking utility for $300,000, and this is the one that's amended to include the Gold Street parking lot and any related parking lots that would be approved by council. Motion to introduce as amended. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Public hearing July 26th at 6:30 p.m. Why don't we keep on saying 7:30? I'm going back 20 years ago. Ordinances for public hearing and final adoption. Ordinance 2017-18, an ordinance establishing the range of salaries for the employees of the Borough of Red Bank and its officials. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this. This does not include a stipend change or amendment for members of council or the mayor. The council still only gets $3,300 and change. The mayor, contrary to popular opinion, gets $7,200 and no insurance. So, any members of the public want to be heard on this? If not, motion to close the public hearing. Second. All in favor? Motion to adopt. Second. Roll call.
Councilman Yingstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Morgan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schwabenbauer?
Yes.
Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
And resolutions, the ordinance is adopted. Resolution 17-143, authorizing renewal of our club licenses for 2017-18. Motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3 abstentions because they're members of one of the clubs, so there's 3 in favor of it. To avoid any confusion, I will cast a vote to renew the club licenses, so that makes the vote of 4.
And just for the record, we're members of the Elks Lodge, so we're for the renewal.
I didn't want to say which one. That's okay.
I figured it was out of it.
Well, I didn't want anybody following you there for a drink after the council meeting. Resolution 17-144, authorizing the renewal of plenary retail distribution licenses. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 17-145, authorizing the renewal of plenary retail consumption licenses. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 17-146, authorizing the hiring of Charles West as part-time plumbing inspector. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 17-147, authorizing the borough to, authorizing the Borough of Red Bank's purchasing agent to enter into a contract with Monarch for emergency medical services. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 17-148, authorizing tax credits or refunds totaling $2,824.11 due to judgment of the tax court as approved by and recommended by the assessor. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A resolution 17-149, authorizing the fixing of compensation for certain officers, positions, and employees of the Borough of Red Bank. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
17-150, a resolution authorizing or requesting special item of revenue, including the Cops and Shop Summer Store Program 2017 in the amount of $1,600, which is funding coming into the borough. Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are no proclamations, right, Pam?
Correct.
Resolution 17-151, a resolution authorizing payments be it resolved by the mayor and council of bills to be paid on the attached check registering totaling $4,359,855.44. Motion. Second. All business. Any new business? Audience. Ms. Burnham.
Good evening. Cindy Burnham, 71 Wallace Street. Question. Father's Day, I was down at Riverside Gardens Park getting ice cream with my family, and the restrooms were closed. Who's Parks and Rec? Eric. What's the story? I mean, we had the special summer cop down there. He was hanging out all over the building.
Well, the ice cream facility should have the key to the bathrooms, so that's...
So you have to ask?
Yes.
Why is it if we have these special summer cops and they're hanging out on the building that they can't leave the bathroom open? I mean, I know about vandalism, believe me, I do.
Yes, that was the biggest concern, that we've had a lot of vandalism, some things that are not appropriate to say in public forums.
I know.
But that's something that we'll definitely talk to the police officers about, and we'll talk to Charlie.
Yeah, if they're hanging there.
Well, yeah, if they're there, they can monitor it. They're there anyway, so we'll discuss this.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Burnham.
You're welcome.
How was the ice cream?
Wonderful.
Yes.
I understand this for consulting with the chief, but I just don't know what hanging out means. That they're not doing. Are they not patrolling, or what are they not doing that we can?
They were standing there around the building.
Mr. Mayor, Freddie told me.
Okay, we got the public. Go ahead.
Yeah, Freddie told me this to let you know he wouldn't be here because he had death in the family. So I told him, well, his niece passed away.
His niece?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I saw him yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, I told him I will. That's why I said I'll come up now.
I'll get her name later after the meeting, so.
Okay, I'll make sure I
Tell
tell
him we miss someone.
I will.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Mayor, Town Council. Just two things real fast.
Your name for the record.
Yes, Roy Jones, East West Side Avenue. On Southbridge Avenue, I haven't seen any speed signs. There's no signs to determine the speed on that street, which is a concern.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the chief is here, but I think it's 25 or 30 miles an hour. Is that correct, chief?
Right, but we don't want them to guess on that.
No, I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
It is, by state statute, it's residential, it's 25 miles per hour.
It's 25, yeah.
Required to be posted. And,
So let's post it, because that's what Mr. Jennings is saying. There's no posted speed signs.
That's right.
We're going to be having a recommendation on Bridge Avenue by the next council meeting on something else, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, if I may, the problem with we would have to post every street in Red Bank that's 25 miles an hour. It becomes somewhat unsightly.
The problem, Chief, the difference with Bridge Avenue is two things. That having grown up on Bridge Avenue and lived there for many years as a kid, it's a very wide street.
Well, South Bridge Avenue is not.
South Bridge Avenue is not wide. It is.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about South Bridge, not regular.
Bridge Avenue is already posted. South Bridge is not, because it has natural speed humps by the intersections. It's not particularly problematic from an accident history. To post every street would be expensive.
But it is a cut-through street.
It's a cut-through, but we could do a speed study and see if there is an actual problem, and then go from there. I'd rather instead of just arbitrarily.
I think one or two signs on each direction would probably solve the problem. Okay.
I guess this is how we do this.
Absolutely.
Michael and Valerie Lafiero, 31 West Front Street, Red Bank. Front Street Trattoria Restaurant. We gave some information to the Mayor and Council just this Monday, I guess for your workshops. I wasn't sure where we fell with that, so I guess it's now. We would like to propose on the west side of our building on the wall a mural that is more a public art It does have the words Front Street Trattoria in it, but Val is handing out pictures. So we'd like to get approval for that.
I have to apologize. Who did you give this to?
We gave it to Pam.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now I know where it is. Okay. Go ahead, please.
So we would like the blessing of the mayor and council to go ahead and we can do this.
My personal opinion is we have a long history of this, of encouraging this. I think that all it has to do is, you know, I frankly think that it's fine because we've done this 25 years ago and we encourage people to do it. And what does the council think?
Actually, I'm gonna sort of turn this around and ask Val, since she's part of Riverside. Have you talked to anybody at the VIC
Yes.
about it? Okay.
Yes.
So normally doesn't the VIC kick off a document to the mayor and council or to the planning board?
That's in the event of an actual application. This is not an actual application.
Actually, it's the opposite. Usually the planning board or zoning board kicks off the application to Vic. We give our approval and then send that back. In this case, Val, who happens to be on the Vic committee, brought it to our attention and showed it to us and got the approval of Vic, but we had not received anything at that point from the borough yet, so we had no vehicle to give our approval back to the borough as of yet.
Well, this is kind of the procedure in reverse, right?
Yes.
So
I would agree.
So, I mean, rather than have you guys appear tonight, could we have come up with a mechanism from the VIC just submitting it for our review at some point?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Application, unless you're doing remodeling to your business or your home, there's no way you
Yeah, they
can get in
wouldn't
front of
get-
anybody.
yeah.
Pam and I were big on emails on how did they get in front of anybody that can make a decision? I mean, we obviously sat up here and approved several of these in the last couple of years, so I don't think there's any dissent against it. I just think they don't understand the real mechanism for us to.
We can't hear you,
Right to
Mark.
get to.
My microphone's dead.
Mark, your mic's on.
They're both dead.
Oh, you must have.
What Councilman Taylor is saying is correct. He's saying is that unless there is a planning board application that would trigger a review and a forward to the Visual Improvement Committee, it wouldn't go to the Visual Improvement Committee. And here there is no planning board review because it's their property and they want to do what I call an artistic enhancement to their property. So I have a solution. We can pass an add-on resolution from the floor that approves the presented schematic drawing as presented, subject to the approval of the Special Improvement Committee, Visual Improvement Committee, and if so, then it's done. Who? He's looking at it now.
So, I mean, as far as coverage according to the current sign?
What the difference here is that it's an artistic, just like it's a mural, right?
Right.
Yeah, so murals are exempt because it's not a sign.
Something similar for the Anderson building years ago, remember?
I'm sorry?
Do you remember we approved something similar for the Anderson building?
It went for some
Industry, well, that was different, that's part of the application.
I mean, and that's the, I think Linda just brought it up, that's the confusing part. There was a process, which is how we ended up voting on that. And this one is sort of the reverse of the process. So, okay, the mayor's
Yeah,
got a
I mean,
solution.
I'm just trying to make it, taking a simple approach to it. You know, it's an artistic rendering. It says, I guess, I love my trattoria.
I love my
fire.
Well, what is the time frame on this? I mean, there are really no details here. When would it start? How long will it
This is going to stay
take?
forever.
But it has to be put on.
Well,
Process, what is the process? Because nothing
the
in this
process
letter
is,
tells us that.
which we're here now trying to figure out, when do we get the okay? As far as the timeline on physically doing this, the artist says you can probably do it in 2 days. So, okay?
Michelangelo's not working on this?
He is a Michelangelo in his own right. He's kind of a famous, his name is Roger Baker. If you look him up online, you'll see some of the work he's done. He's been on PBS.
Come on.
Quite a guy.
I mean, if the council's okay with it, I mean, we've done these, I think it helps. It helps us keep us au courant in terms of our artistic endeavors.
I'll make a
Can
motion.
you explain that?
I'll make a motion to approve. I think it looks great and it's cool, so.
Thank you.
Second.
No, I think public art is great, we need more of it. I'm not against it, I guess I just don't like it coming and being thrown at us right this minute, but I had no problem with public art at all. It enhances one's life.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, any other members of the public? Mr. Brooks, our arborist.
By default.
You're paying a lot of money for that. 100% of zero is zero.
Oh, I got a raise. Excellent.
Yeah.
Double my pay. Mayor, I'm not sure how or to whom this question's got to be directed. I have a feeling it's Councilman Whalen, but first I want to thank Pam for getting me all the parking studies and having had the great fun of reading through all of them. Can I address this directly to Mr. Whalen? It is a parking-related question.
Sure.
What's the parking
I'll
shortage?
it to him, but you can address, you can yell at me. That's the way the council set it up.
I am not yelling at you. We've gotten through that. Today, 28 June 2017, what is the number of spaces that we are short, that we're trying to, get to a point where we either solve all of that or we put a dent in it? Because it's kind of convoluted when you go through all of those studies to try and figure it out. What's the number today?
Okay, sorry, because I know sometimes we don't answer or not. Over the last 10, 15 years, you saw actually Victor Quo, thank you, Victor, for posting those individual parking studies on the Red Bank Business Community Newsroom. He posted a lot of links, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, those are mine.
As you saw, that it goes from 1996.
No worries, but
to CME did a scope report in 2014,
Yeah.
1,200 spots is what I.
Well, the 92 study showed 1,600.
Okay.
So but that's not my question. I got that. But do we know what we're short today?
I mean, if you're confident that again, off the top of my head, I can't remember the second, but if you're saying that in 1996 it was 1,600 spots short,
92.
1992 it was 1,600 spots short, just look how the downtown has changed from 1992 to 2017. So if anything,
I
the demand
know.
has grown.
I know.
Well, I couldn't tell you an exact number.
All right.
now.
Well, I think my point is,
I'll tell you we're short parking spaces.
I understand that, but I think my point is to caution the council, the governing body, and all the boards going forward with this. We have to make sure we get this right. You can't see the target, you can't shoot it. So if we don't know the number, we better find out. I think the first step maybe has to be have somebody that knows about parking studies. I don't, okay? If the methodology in that is accepted, and it's current and accepted today, that the way they did it would be the way it would be done today. We can come close. It's a lot of work. If that number, someone says, yeah, this is good. If we look at the exemptions that have been granted over the last 25 years by the zoning and planning boards for waiving parking requirements, that's a plus number. And if we look at the change of use variances or whatever we have, that's a negative number. Add the two columns up, add one to the other, subtract it, and we're gonna be close. So my question is, if it was 1,600 then, and we don't really know what it is today, and no one's fault, we don't really know what that number is. I think we have to be careful going forward that we actually do know what that number is, because it may be kind of stunning.
And that's obviously great points. I mean, just two things I would say quickly back to that is that you're never going to say you knew the exact number. Say it was 2,112 that we needed. you're never going to actually be able to build the number of spots that we need just in White Street. So I think earlier in your statement, you said it more correctly. Are you going to be able to solve Red Bank's parking problems on White Street, or are you going to be able to put a dent into it? And I definitely don't envision a structure on White Street that's going to be able to solve Red Bank's parking needs.
I never proposed that or indicated that or suggested that.
Oh, I never said that either.
What I think is that we better know what we're trying to address accurately, because that builds in no cushion for growth. And I think everybody needs to get on the same page, roll the sleeves up, let's solve this, because everyone up here is responsible to the town, the infrastructure of the town, the businesses, the residents. Everything has to work as one entity, or the solution we're going to get is no good. And we cannot afford to get this wrong right straight out of the box, because we'll never be able to fix it on the scale that is being looked at. But my caution to all of you is, let's find out what the number is, and maybe that swings our slant at looking at things like, well, you know what, it's only 800. Now, wait a minute, how do we maximize all this stuff? What can we do? But I would caution you to get that number before we go too much further forward, because I don't believe it's fair to the business community at all, nor is it fair to the residents, nor is it fair to yourselves, because you're all residents. So let's see if we can't get a more accurate end goal before we get too far into this thing.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? I see your hand. I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, Mr. Placer, I'm sorry. Bill was in front of you.
All right. Good luck.
I'm not that loud. Different pitch. Alan Placer, Hobby Master, 62 White Street. In response to Bill, and not to counteract his point, because all these points are needed, White Street lot has about 200 spots. If you built an 8-story monstrosity, that would be 1,600 spots, which hits those parking garage goals, and you'd have a monstrosity of nothing but parking spaces. Like Mr. Whelan was saying, if you get 500 spots into that lot, you've now made a dent in it, and you now have revenue coming in that you can use for some of your other parking lots on the east side of town to build other garage facilities and park more cars, or maybe as time goes by the need for parking goes down because Uber takes over and flying cars are a thing and we learn to make a teleporter or whatever.
Placer's Uber service.
Placer's Uber service, I'll take it. So the idea of doing another study when all of the studies point to, I think, a minimum of over 500, maximum of somewhere around the 2,000. At this point, we don't need another study because we're underbuilding what all of the studies say. So to stop where we're at right now to make another study that's just going to say you need at least 500, if not more, when we're not planning on building 500, is a waste of time and taxpayer dollars. The other problem you would have if you stop right now is who's going to put a proposal in? These contractors just put in over 10 grand a piece.
I think we're going too far afield on that. I mean, you're welcome to continue commenting, but we're going to have a special meeting on it. And just for Mr. Brooks, what he did say is not that we actually had to do a special, undertake a special study. What he wanted to caution us is to make sure that empirically, whatever studies were done, we have augmented with empirical data that brings us from the last study to the present time. That's all he was saying, which I think makes sense. We would have to do that, or anybody, no matter what you do.
Right, and I appreciate that, and you're right, that is the right thing. But to stop this RFP process now, when the current RFP process can have that data put into it, and all of the contractors have shown that they're willing to amend the number of spots, these guys have put tens of thousands of dollars into developing these programs. All of them at their hearing said they're willing to change the number of spaces,
okay,
the look.
We're getting too far afield on that because we can't respond to that right now.
I'm not asking for a response. What I'm asking for is a realization that if you stop the process now, nobody else is going to put a bid in the future. What sound business person would look at Red Bank, who did this 8 years ago, I think the last go-around was, and is doing it now, and throws everybody's bids away? Nobody's going to put another bid in and invest all that money into our town that doesn't even finish the process, doesn't even give these guys the opportunity to bring forth a plan that might work for us. Everybody from that last meeting wanted to see what these guys can come up with, except for the people sitting up here. We want to see it. The Red Bank Business Alliance is planning on holding a town hall meeting that I think might help with the sunshine laws if it's held by an outside community, that we're going to invite the developers back, the residents to come in, sit, talk, and everybody here is welcome as long as they're allowed. And an open forum, like we did previously, where everybody can voice what is it that they want to see on White Street. And then the developers can modify their plans to be that. There's no reason to stop this right now, and there's certainly no reason to use it as a political game to try to get a re-election.
Alan, I appreciate your comments. As I indicated, I think we're getting a little bit far afield, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Forrest?
Ben Forrest, 16 Locust Avenue. I don't like being right in front of the camera. I remember the last time I was in front of the camera.
It wasn't your best side.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you see it on Facebook. Well, you may not be able to respond because some of this stuff is going to be about the parking lot. Of course, it seems absurd that we're all here and we can't talk about it. Of course, you know, we're talking about something that might be towering us over here on the other side of the block here. I guess I do appreciate, Mayor, your conversation earlier from the report from Mr. Whalen about the, not everyone was able to attend the presentation last week. And I was glad to hear, well, I don't know who said it.
I didn't say anything to that effect.
Well, I mean, Mr. Malin's report.
That.
Well, I don't know. For whatever reason, not everyone was able to attend the hearing last week. On the presentations.
No, but you said I said something that he said.
Well, I'm inelegant, not eloquently saying, you know, because I'm supposed to address you, I think, under the new rules, right? So I really want to talk to Mr. Whalen.
Oh, you could.
But I'm following the rules, you know. I'm supposed to go through you, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I had the class too at the Board of Ed at some point, but I don't remember the rules. As you know, I wasn't happy, and I guess you weren't, that 3 of the councilmen couldn't attend. And I just, in the future, I think it should always, when we have a presentation of such magnitude, I mean, this is the biggest project in my lifetime here, I think, and probably most people here, I'm 54, that if they don't want to attend, that's their decision. But I think we should have it where always every member, I saw you were here, Mayor, and appreciate that, that you should be here. And even if you don't seem on board in the direction that you would like to go or what you think we should explore or whatever, you know. I mean, this is the real world. We have politics. Things happen. You certainly have done politics in the past. I seem to remember some politics that a certain senator played around parking years ago when I was in this room. So, you know, there's plenty of things. I don't want to revisit all the things in the past, but, you know, this is the real world, and maybe if we have a good enough plan, maybe somebody will come on board. It's not just the Republicans and it's the mayor. And I really feel strongly that if we do something this dramatic, it shouldn't just be a minimum to get it by, if at all possible. And I'm sure you'd agree with that. And you know, but of course, everybody has a right to exercise their rights to put press releases out 2 in the morning if they want, and it's okay with me. I mean, you can do that. It's a free country. They don't necessarily have to play nice in the sandbox. I don't always play nice in the sandbox, and it's the way it is. And I'm not mad at you about it, actually, at all. I think it's important that we get this right, and we don't want to rubber stamp this stuff. We don't want to rush it through. I mean, redevelopment is complicated, and it could cost us a lot of money if we get it wrong. We've already got litigation going, and I'm kind of glad there is reluctance and something to slow it down. I'm kind of a hard sell on building this thing. I might go for it in the sense that I do believe in building these sort of things in urban centers, and that's what we're talking about, building up an urban center. But I have reservations. I think there's going to be winners and losers. I kind of like the easy parking. And I have, you know, shared with your committee my video that I did of what happens when RBC empties out. Now, we have 2 problems with the parking, in my view, and I'm oversimplifying it somewhat, is that during the day, when I want to go to have lunch in town and support my downtown, a lot of times during the year I cannot find a place to park very easily. And I know a lot of the nooks and crannies, and what it is mainly is from what I can tell, employee parking and Red Bank Catholic. And I'm not angry about it, I understand. It used to be not a problem when the 4-hour limit was enforced on White Street, but the 4-hour limit is no longer enforced. I don't know all the details as to why that is. I know everybody pays and you can't discriminate against one group, But you have to find, whatever solution this is, a way to deal with that. And if we build a parking deck, whether it's commercial or whether we build it ourselves, I think we should talk to Red Bank Catholic. I think we should talk to the business community, and maybe during the day, you have the employees and students actually mostly in this deck, and leave the easy parking if it turned out to be a sole parking deck, so that people who just want to come into town and have lunch at the in-between or wherever can just easily park. Because a lot of people do not like parking decks. My wife will never go on a parking deck pretty much unless it's the end of the world. And I know she's not alone that way. A lot of people really loathe them. And so I think there's, like I said, if we build a monstrosity, there's going to be things that we all don't like about it. The easy parking days are gone. You deal with Red Bank, it's going to be $6 to $12 a park. That gets me to the next point. I really want, you heard the number about how many spots. What I want to know is how much is it going to cost to park in there? Because there's a big difference between going to the in-between and paying $4 to park in there, or going to the in-between and paying $16 and park, in in-between. When I go to various towns, Hoboken, Princeton, wherever, these numbers are all over the place. And some of them are like the airlines, depending on what time of day and what day of the week, if it's a holiday or not, you pay twice as much. In Hoboken, if you go on the weekend, it's 3 times as much to park. So I really, as a parking committee, if you're going to do a proposal, I would like to see a real estimate of what we're talking about numbers-wise. So if the students want to park there, it might be financially doable. If we're going to make it $20 to park there for the day, you're going to have too many high school students parking their car there, or for that matter, employees. So that's something so kind of these financial things. The other thing is, I don't know how much you're going to be able to disclose, but as a taxpayer and a stakeholder, I really want to know some of these financial details if we go with some big thing. Taxes, how much taxes are we going to get? Will it be net plus or minus? I don't know how much you can disclose, but I think that's a real important thing. The other thing is, we have a proposal from Democrats that was put online. I hope your committee talks about stuff. I don't know what happens when the parking committee meets, but I think everything should be on the table and you should look at this whole thing. I'm not sure how this all matches up, because I remember some confusing statements about, well, we have a request for proposal, so we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that. But now these issues seem to have commingled a lot. The independent, the standalone garage, the various things. This actual plan that the Democrats put out for, what they think should happen, and another study. And by the way, I totally sympathize with Alan about the study. I guess it's because I'm old and I've been here through all the other studies like you.
We're about 6 minutes, Ben. I haven't stopped you, but keep on wrap it up.
I don't really want to see another parking study, but it's more of an emotional, gosh, I've had enough of this parking studies. But, if it helps to convince the town and win people over, maybe it's something we should really look at. Because it has been 1992 since we did the last one, and maybe common sense says it hasn't gotten better, but maybe we've also learned new things about studying traffic. I don't know, I'm not a traffic expert, but it has been a long time since some sort of traffic study was done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next. Ms. Filipetti.
Got to follow Ben. Tom Libetti, 45 Elm Place. Go quickly here. Last Tuesday night, the county held a meeting discussing the replacement or redesign of the Oceanic Bridge, and they're taking public comment on it. And I was wondering, Mayor, if, since we are a river town, if we've considered what the impacts to the 3 different proposals of bridge heights might be to our river and navigability. Would we come up with a statement from
I
the
would be
town?
happy to come up with my statement. The first statement is that I'm duly designating you as my liaison to those meetings. And I would like you to make your recommendation back to us as quickly as possible, and we'll adopt those recommendations.
I'm going to need a little bit of a bond. I need a boat.
I thought you were
I've heard something about boat checks. Anyone up there familiar? No?
Tom, when Stanley's back from vacation, we can talk to him about it.
You have been following this, and frankly, I think that we respect your enthusiasm as well as your interest in it. And, and I meant that. So I would like you to be our liaison to it.
Okay, fair enough. I'll see what I can help out. I don't know anything about boats and navigation, stuff like that, but that sounds great.
Well, I can't swim, you know that. So don't look at me.
Come to the Y. I got my lifeguard training there. I can help you. The second quick item is, as part of the assessment demonstration program, I had a visit from a well-badged, very respectful, well-done visit from an inspector from RDS, and which was great. I was just surprised. I didn't realize that we had hired RDS. I know that back in November into December, we had an RFP. We weren't happy with who came back for the RFP. And I haven't been come to the meetings, but I noticed that in March, we opened up a new RFP for only 5 days. And in those 5 days, I'm only going by what's on the website. So whoever's doing the website, the record says it was opened on March 15th and it was closed on March 20th. That's why I'm raising that part of the question.
I'm glad you raised that. Maybe the clerk can take a look at it. It may have been a mid-typo. Only 5 days? That doesn't sound right.
I didn't think so either. I frankly don't know why the RFP was pulled and then put out there again, but...
I can check the public notice and let you know what that says, that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have that information right now. I mean,
Okay.
We're supposed to comply with, and I'm sure we complied with.
I'm sure, but that was my concern with taking part in the ADP back then. So hiring of vendors to do this extra service, we would not have enough and we would not get proper responses to the RFP. There's not enough competition because there's too much work.
We're in agreement with you.
Okay. Finally, on the parking deck, we went with electronic meters several years ago, and we have a vendor who, if you go to their website, whether it's T2 or any other ones, MPay is the payment one, but T2 install the equipment, and if you go to any, and they provide the software behind it from what I can see. If you go to any of their websites, MPay, T2, they kind of blend together. They've got whole suites of reports that you could subscribe to and get data. Now, every meter over there is electronic, and every meter just about in town is electronic. I work in the financial industry with these nerds that are even nerdier than me. They're called quants. All right, and I give them what they call big data, and they crunch it and they come up with these great investment ideas. But I can't vouch for them. But why can't we ask our vendor to provide to us a month or so of detailed data of May? I mean, it seems absurd. It's like we've subscribed to Netflix and we're only getting the DVDs. We're not getting the streaming service. If we have it, can I Oprah it? I mean, I would think the level of detail that they show on those websites is much, it's granular, and you can get these reports. I want to know what spots are sat in all day, or how long somebody's in a spot, how much we're using stuff by.
Yeah, we have some information about that. Like, for example, with MPay, we know how many MPay users are there a day based on what lots, whether it's White Street, English Plaza. So we have some of that information. So I guess, I don't know how much clearer your question could be. I know Cliff, if you have to meet, you want to talk to Cliff. Cliff will have a lot of those reports and numbers that, we'll definitely be able to.
Mayor, I believe the administrator one time told me before that we're not subscribing to a certain level of service. We don't pay for those low-level detailed reports. Are you aware of anything along those lines? And maybe Cliff can answer that. But I think if the data at that very low level is available, it could help us to see how the parking lots are actually used, because we have the data right in front of us. I haven't seen it anywhere.
Yeah, we have that, all of the parking lot information. We know who's there, what times, and what spots based on the kiosk and the MPAs.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I'm just going to clarify something for you.
Yeah, please do.
The data that you're talking about is only going to come from those parking spots that are serviced by kiosks. It will not include all of the paid parking throughout the borough. It's only where kiosks exist.
Well, that would make sense.
Right, where kiosks exist, and also last year we expanded the MPay technology, so even though on Monmouth and Broad it's the old meter heads, if you actually want to pay through MPay on Broad instead of a quarter, we'll know that. So to Ed's point, he's correct. It's only the kiosks and the technology, but like on Monmouth and Broad, if you just put the quarters in, we won't really know based on the data. Unless they use MPay, then we'll know what spots on Broad and Monmouth will be there.
Okay. But because Tom's a data guy,
I'd like to see
just
it.
wanted you to be aware that the data is going to be skewed.
I think there's a detailed data subset that can be provided to the public, and I'd love to have it.
Was that Christmas in July for you?
Getting to ask 3 different things? I don't come too much anymore. All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
No, I mean, I know you're a data guy, so you should be excited over all that data. Yeah.
Anybody else? We have to adjourn for executive session to discuss two matters. One is, actually, they're both personnel issues. I believe we will be taking formal action. The discussion should only take maybe about 5 minutes at the most. So is there a motion to adjourn for executive session?
Mayor,
Second,
sorry.
we'll take a little break, but go
The
ahead.
chief actually just texted me, your question earlier, Middletown Hubbard should be finished by July 14th.
Bastille Day?
July 14th, I just know you had the question, I got the answer for you.
So that means that if it's not reopened on July 14th, we get the guillotine out? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor?
Sorry, I was on the council meeting. Oh. Period. I have something recording tonight.